Our main story this week is the GERD, Ethiopia's $5 billion mega dam being erected on the Blue Nile, which contributes more than 80% of the Nile River. This week, we will see the developments surrounding the dam following President Trump's comments that suggested that Egypt may resort to using force in order to protect its water interests. In addition to that, we will also talk about the unfortunate death of Ethiopian painter Laureate Lemma Guya at the age of 92, the peaceful protests set to take place in the Amhara regional states and Addis Ababa, and the resumption of school for 8th graders and 12th graders amid the coronavirus pandemic, along with 2 awards given to an Ethiopian minister and an Ethiopian public enterprise. I'm Wangel Tamene, and this is RECAP Ethiopia, your one-stop shop for a summary of major events in Ethiopia. We start with some sad news coming out of Ethiopia, as prominent painter Laureate Lemma Guya passed away at the age of 92 of natural causes. The painter, who was dubbed by Jimma University as the most famous painter out of the Oromia community, was born from his father Guya Gameda and his mother Mari Govena in 1921 in an area known as Addis, a wereda in the Oromia regional state. The laureate went to school at the age of 14 before joining the Adama Teachers Training Center in 1943. He later joined the Ethiopian Air Force, where he taught as an airplane technician for several years. However, through it all, the laureate worked on his painting skills before gaining prominence for his immense talents. Laureate Lemma is known for his paintings made on goat skin. One of the most visible achievements of the late Lemma Guya are the paintings of the 54 founding fathers of the Organization of the African Unity, now known as the African Union. The portraits are located at the African Union Commission building in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He also established an art gallery in 1983, which was known as the Lemma Guya Art Gallery, which later became the African Arts and Tech Training Museum, a center for African artists to come and study art. The artist has painted over 10,000 paintings on goat skin over 65 years of artistic engagement. 4 of the laureate's 5 children are engaged in paintings as well. Laureate Lemma Guya is survived by 3 daughters and 2 sons. Our second story relates to developments in the Amhara regional states and the attacks against the Amhara communities across different parts of the country. In the beginning of the week, the National Movement for Amhara, commonly known as ABIN, stated that in response to the killing of ethnic Amharas in different parts of the country, it will be holding peaceful protests in different cities within the Amhara regional state on Wednesday, October 28, and in Addis Ababa on Sunday, November 1, 2020. The party noted that the peaceful protests were organized in response to the sporadic killings of ethnic Amharas that are happening more often than not in the country. On the same day, the communications head of the Amhara regional state released a statement stating that it does not recognize the peaceful protests organized by the party, claiming that the party's agenda creates security issues in an already sensitive political environment, also saying that the timing of the protest is not appropriate considering the internal and external challenges the country is facing. On the next day, Tuesday, October 27, 2020, the party announced the central office of the party was surrounded by the Addis Ababa police. The party continued to say in a Facebook post that the police entered the premises of the office, telling leaders of the party that they could not leave the premises. As a result, the party said that it will not go forward with the plans to hold the peaceful protests, as this hampers the ability of the party to coordinate the protests as well as distribute logistics and materials to the different cities in the region. At the time this episode was filmed, no further development has occurred in regards to the story. Schools are back, at least for 8th graders and 12th graders. The Ministry of Education of Ethiopia kicked off a 45-day makeup class for grade 8 and grade 12 students as the country prepares to resume classes at all levels in the coming few weeks. The 8th and 12th graders return to schools prior to the rest of the classes because of the national exams they are set to take at the end of the 45-day makeup classes. In connection with this, and national examination, the ministry also said that, contrary to previous practice, exams will only contain 3 semesters, omitting the 1 semester that students did not attend due to the coronavirus pandemic. The እኔ ማስተምራለሁ campaign also kicked off this week, spearheaded by Ethiopian Minister of Education, Dr. Getachew Mukria, who returned to teaching as a 12th grade physics teacher in Minilik II Secondary School. The minister will teach for the remaining 45 days as per the terms of the campaign. The campaign plans to increase the workforce by encouraging former and retired teachers to teach. In other news related to the Ministry of Education, 2 officials of the minister traveling to the Afar regional state were killed by unknown assailants on Wednesday, October 28, 2020. The identity of the assailants remain unknown at the time this episode of RECAP was filmed. Finally, a bit of good news. This week saw the recognition of 1 Ethiopian public servant and 1 Ethiopian public enterprise in different fields and teams. Let's start with the first one. It was announced on Tuesday by the Rotary Club that the health minister of the country has received the 2020 Paul Harris Fellow in appreciation of tangible and significant assistance given for the furtherance of better understanding and friendly relations among people of the world. This also made Dr. Leah Taddese an honorary member of the Rotary Club. The health minister expressed her delight in a tweet that read, "Thank you, Rotary Foundation. Honored to be named Paul Harris Fellow and join the Rotary family." Previous recipients of the award, which is named after the founder of the Rotary International, include the 39th US President Jimmy Carter, former Russian President Boris Yeltsin, US astronaut James Lovell, and polio vaccine developer Jonas Salk. According to Rotary International, the number of recipients of the award passed the 1 million mark in 2006. Another recognition, this time to a public enterprise, came in the form of an Ethiopian Airlines being named Best African Airline by the Business Traveler magazine in its 2020 edition of the Business Traveler Awards. According to the publishers of the award, Pansay Media, the award is considered to be a widely recognized award that is seen as the market's benchmark for excellence. It has been a while since we've talked about the GERD on an episode of RECAP Ethiopia. This is mainly because the negotiations had stopped for over 7 weeks. However, this week on Tuesday, the African Union-led negotiations resumed between the 3 upper riparian states. This was not the main story in the updates surrounding Ethiopia's mega dam and the negotiations around it as well. Instead, the main story was the comments made by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, during a phone call between himself and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as Sudanese Transitional President Abdallah Hamdok. The call to the 2 heads of state was made in celebration of a new peace agreement between Israel and Sudan, which was brokered by the Trump administration. After remarks over the peace agreement that would see Sudan normalize relation with Israel and pay compensation to families of US terrorism victims in return for being removed for the list of countries funding terrorist groups, Trump posed a question to the Sudanese leader asking how the negotiations were going. But before allowing the interim president of Sudan to reply, the president said this first.
How is the dam doing in Ethiopia? The largest dam in many, many years being built. Unfortunately, it stops water from flowing into the Nile, which causes Egypt a little bit of a problem, right? As it should. But Ethiopia built a dam. You know all about it probably, Bibi, but I've been dealing with Sudan on that. And I'm just curious, how is that going? Because you're really the third party involved with Ethiopia and Egypt and the dam. Are they working out their deal? Because I had a deal done for them. And then unfortunately, Ethiopia broke the deal, which they should not have done. That was a big mistake. And we've stopped payment to them of a lot of aid because they did it. And they will never see that money unless they adhere to the agreement. But they built a dam which stops water from flowing into the Nile. And you can't blame Egypt for being a little bit upset, right? How are they doing with that, do you know?
The president of the transitional Sudanese government responded to the above question, stating that the 3 countries were heading in an encouraging position, also saying that the negotiating countries hoped to reach an amicable understanding that would secure a mutually beneficial agreement. Hamdok said that this could happen soon. And then President Trump said the following asking Sudan to make sure that Ethiopia comes to an agreement with the other riparian states.
Yeah, if you would, because I had a deal done, and then they broke the deal, and they can't do that. They can't do that. So the deal was done, and it's a very dangerous situation because Egypt is not going to be able to live that way, and they'll end up blowing up the dam. And I said it, and I say it loud and clear. They'll blow up that dam, and they have to do something. So whatever you can do to get them, Ethiopia, to do that, they're going to have to, okay? And we've cut off all payment and everything else to Ethiopia. It was terrible. We were all set to sign a deal. It was negotiated for 5 years and longer than that. And they couldn't make the deal, and I got the deal done. And then they're getting ready to sign the deal, and they broke the deal, which is not good. So whatever you could do, Prime Minister, if you could, that would be great, okay? You tell them they got to get it done. And I'm telling Egypt the same thing, by the way, you know, because they could have stopped it. They should have stopped it long before it was started. I said, how do you let it get built? And then you say they have a dam, you know. But they had other things on their mind. That was at a time when they were having a minor revolution, to put it mildly. That was a bad time for Egypt, so I guess they had other things on their mind. So you'll work on that, Sudan, and thank you very much.
This caused a great deal of outcry from the Ethiopian government, as well as Ethiopians and members of the Ethiopian diaspora. The Ethiopian government immediately responded to the comments of the American president made on Friday, October 23, 2020. The Ethiopian prime minister was among the first to respond a day after Trump's comments, categorizing the comments by the American president as occasional statements of belligerent threats to have Ethiopians succumb to unfair terms. In a letter by the office of the prime minister, the Prime Minister affirmed Ethiopia's strong commitment to reaching an agreement based on equitable and reasonable utilization of the Nile for the mutual benefit of the three negotiating countries. The Prime Minister also noted that the strong national pride surrounding the $5 billion project by saying the commitment of the Ethiopians to defend their sovereignty is unparalleled, compounded by the ambition of over 100 million people to achieve their well-articulated plan for development. In light with this, the Prime Minister said, Ethiopia will not cave in to aggression of any kind, nor do we give recognition to a right that entirely depends on colonial treaties. Before saying, we wish to reiterate our commitment for a peaceful resolution of the matter on GERD based on cooperation, non-interference, mutual trust, and the principle of equitable and reasonable utilization. In concurrence with the letter by the Office of the Prime Minister, the Ethiopian Foreign Minister summoned the American ambassador to Ethiopia, Mike Rayner, seeking clarification over the comments of the president that, according to the minister, were inciteful of war. The foreign minister also said in a statement, the incitement of war between Ethiopia and Egypt from a sitting US president neither reflects the long-standing partnership and strategic alliance between Ethiopia and the United States, nor is acceptable in international law governing interstate relations. Other institutions also responded to the comments of the president, like the House of People's Representatives, which said it denounces the statement of the president, claiming that the comments were gravely irresponsible and not expected from a head of state. The parliament also called on Ethiopians in and out of the country to increase their unity in defense of the country's sovereignty before affirming that it remains committed to work for what the country is doing to reach an amicable understanding based on fair and reasonable utilization of the Nile. On Wednesday, October 28, 2020, the Ethiopian government made another important announcement via its Air Force, as Major General Yilma Merdesa expressed the readiness of the Air Force to deal with any attacks that may be directed at the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, also stating that the eyes of the Air Force will be on the dam 24/7, showing Ethiopia's readiness to protect its dam from any attacks on top of its commitment to the root of the negotiation. The first university of the country, Addis University, also released a statement on Monday. In a statement via its Facebook page, the Office of the President of the university called the comments by the president very inappropriate due to the volatile nature of the region, which is usually affected by instability and conflict. On the back of this observation, the president of the university said, Addis Ababa University does not feel comfortable with the statement of President Trump as it might cause a serious global crisis and add to the pain of the world already plagued by the COVID-19 pandemic. We would therefore like to advise that a reconsideration of the position of the United States, as stated by the President, would save the world from more trouble. Ethiopian embassies in different parts of the country also responded to the comments of the president. The Ethiopian embassy in Canada released a statement with a quote that read, "No one can stop Ethiopia from utilizing its natural resources," while the Ethiopian embassy in Israel announced that it will hold a webinar on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which will feature a presentation from Professor Haggai Inrich titled "From Aswan to Renaissance Dam" on Thursday, October 29, 2020. Ethiopian embassies in London, Doha, and other parts of the world also expressed their discontent with the president's comments. Religious leaders also condemned the comments of the American president as statements were issued from the Holy Synod of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, the Ethiopian Catholic Church, as well as the Ethiopian Islamic Affairs Supreme Council regarding the president's bombing comment. However, it was not only the Ethiopian authorities that responded to the comments of the president suggesting Egypt will bomb the dam. International and regional institutions also expressed their position surrounding the statement. Even though the European Union did not address the president's comments directly, in a statement by the High Representative of the European Union, Josep Borrell, reaffirmed the commitment of the European Union to the African Union-led negotiations over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, saying that the negotiations are at encouraging stage. The Intergovernmental Organization for Authority on Development, to which 2 of the 3 negotiating states are part of, also released a statement regarding the comment by President Donald Trump. Like the EU, the IGAD also did not address the president directly. Instead, via its executive secretary, Worqeneh Gabayehu, the Regional Economic Commission stated that it remains confident that the AU-led negotiations will result in a solution acceptable to all parties concerned in the negotiation. The Congressional Black Caucus, which had released a statement in June urging the US to remain a neutral party to the negotiations, also condemned the statement by the US president, claiming that it was inciteful of violence. The tweet by the caucus reads as follows. President Trump's comments insinuating Egypt will blow up the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam project is reckless and dangerous. The CBC has urged the US to remain impartial in the negotiations between Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan. We condemn his statement and attempt to fuel tensions. Ethiopians in and out of the country also responded to the comments of the president, with large numbers of users online sharing their positions regarding the threat of bombs on the mega dam being erected on the Nile. The tweet by the Ethiopian ambassador to the US regarding the online support for the GERD captures the engagement of Ethiopians with the president's comments as follows. Thanks, Ethiopians in the US, for your massive support for GERD by social and other media. We count on your continued support and generous contribution to expedite completion of GERD. Rest assured, the diplomacy of scare, tactics, and browbeating will never succeed. It was on the back of this that the African Union-led negotiations over the GERD also resumed this week under the chairmanship of South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. The office of the chairperson of the African Union said the following in a tweet that announced the resumption of talks between the 3 negotiating countries. The tweet reads as follows. His Excellency President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa of the Republic of South Africa is pleased to announce that following extensive consultation with the heads of state of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, negotiating parties, His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi of the Arab Republic of Egypt, His Excellency Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, and His Excellency Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok of the Republic of Sudan, the trilateral negotiations on the GERD will resume on Tuesday, 27 October 2020, following a 7-week break. It has now been nearly a decade since the dispute over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam started in 2011. Ethiopia believes in utilizing the Nile for the development goals it has put in place, as the GERD alone is expected to provide electricity to more than 60% of the country. Currently, less than 45% has access to electricity, according to the World Bank. According to Egypt and Sudan, however, this project presents a serious threat to their water supply, in turn affecting the livelihood of millions of people in the 2 countries. An article by Foreign Policy, especially for Egypt, states that a huge proportion of its population lives along the banks of the Nile, relying on the river for irrigation and drinking water. Egyptian officials argue that damming the Nile closer to its source in Ethiopia could severely threaten the country's water supply. In this context, Egypt wants to pen an agreement that will require Ethiopia to release a fixed amount of water in order to guarantee water supply for the Aswan reservoir, as well as putting in place a process that will help monitor Ethiopia's compliance with the terms of the agreement. On the other hand, Ethiopia does not want to commit to a permanent commitment to releasing water from the dam for the safety of the Aswan reservoir that passes beyond the filling period of the GERD. It also wants to introduce periodical reviews as a means of monitoring as opposed to rigorous one suggested by the Egyptian negotiations. Want to see more of RECAP Ethiopia? Like, share, and subscribe to our channel.